live on a Zoom discussing Hawaii and their new tax code and how it's going to affect the different farmers. So that's what we're doing. I won't be able to really answer any questions, but I'm going to let you guys listen in.
The folks that are participating in this program are doing legitimate agriculture. And that has always been the intent of the agricultural programs, is that the practices that are engaged in the agricultural programs should adhere to common practices within agriculture. And so one of the things that has happened historically is that there was an audit done of Chapter 19, which is our tax code, and that audit identified some gaps in this particular program, particularly the non-dedicated ag program, and the perception that it could be abused by landowners that were not doing legitimate agriculture. And so as considering how much this program cost the county, it seemed appropriate to strengthen that system. And there were a series of recommendations that were provided by a real property tax working group subcommittee that identified some particular steps the county should take. One of those was creating a short-term dedicated program. So the 10-year dedicated program has some certain requirements, but for a lot of folks that are just starting out, they don't know if they can commit to a 10-year program. Or if they're an older farmer, they don't necessarily know that their family is going to want to continue the farm operations, if they decide they want to retire from the business. And so the 10-year program was burdensome. And so we created a shorter 3-year dedicated program, which has the identical benefits to the current non-dedicated program. And the 3-year program has the same criteria as the long-term dedicated program, but it's only for 3 years, and you have that opportunity to renew that, like I said, 3 times, although I think that's something that we're going to look at changing. In addition, we recognize that community food sustainability in general is a high priority for our community, and we recognize that the dedicated programs don't necessarily cover all ways that people contribute to the food systems. And so we created a third dedicated agricultural use, which is the Community Food Sustainability Use Program. And that
I don't know if y'all can hear me over her, but let me explain something to y'all. This is where regulations and oversight from the government ruin the ability for people to start farming, okay?
Savings, but it requires that you are giving food in some way to the community, either by sale or donation. And so the big change, I think, that has folks concerned is that there is additional paperwork required. Now, we know that if you're farming, you don't have a lot of time to do paperwork.
No, we don't.
And so we gave some other options. If you have, and this is something that I've gotten a lot of questions about. There's a list of documentations in the rules that we'll accept: an organic certification, an NRCS plan, a food safety certification. These are all alternatives. If you don't have any of those things, it's okay. You just need to be able to provide us with a farm plan that describes how what you're doing on your property meets agricultural standards. The other concern that I hear from a lot of folks, and I'm going to quote Chapter 19 here, so I want to make sure that everybody has the language, is the $2,000 threshold when it comes to the dedicated programs. The language says that an agricultural business, commercial agricultural activities shall mean farm operations that may include multiple parcels. So this is one thing that's important, is there are size limits on the parcels, but you can aggregate multiple parcels that are non-contiguous, and that they need to generate income, monetary gain, or economic benefit in the form of money or money's worth of a minimum of $2,000 annual gross income per farm operation. That is something that concerns a lot of folks because they're not meeting that threshold. I want to say that the other part of that sentence is, or adhere to generally accepted standards or recognized practices within that agricultural industry. So for example, if you're looking at a pasture where you have cattle that are grazing for pasture maintenance and keeping grass down, there are standards with respect to the number of head per acreage that if you're complying to those agricultural standards, you still meet this definition of the commercial agricultural activities without necessarily having that income threshold.
You guys hear this?
I wanted
This
to
is
make
what
sure
people
that
on
was
the
a
Hawaiian
clear
Islands
understanding
deal
of
with
folks.
when they're trying to
There are
form.
other aspects of this that have some flexibility to it because we know no farm is the same. There's a lot of different unique challenges. But as I've been able to talk with individual folks, the objective, here from the county side is not to shut down any farming operations, but to make sure that we are providing tax benefits in a robust way that is fair across the county. We are providing a significant benefit to our farmers, and we want to make sure that that subsidy that the rest of the county is providing is managed and monitored in a robust way. So
in other words, we're going to give you tax breaks, but you're going to follow
if you can, folks,
all these rules.
I see we have a lot of questions in the chat right now that I'll do my best to answer. But let me start with live questions. If you can raise your hand if you've got a question, I'm happy to answer that. Anybody have questions? Yes. Doug Master.
Hi, so this is Shannon Master.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi, and I wanted to ask, so do I understand it correctly that the homeowners program is different than the ag dedication program and you have to choose to be in one or the other? I'm kind of confused about the bigger picture, so if you could help me understand that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So in the past, yes, you had to, for example, if you were a homeowner and you had a farm on your property, you had to choose either between being in the homeowners class or being in a non-dedicated ag program. You couldn't be both.
Funny, you can't be both.
We've said, okay, you can be in the non-dedicated ag program. Of course, you're going to have to transition to either the short-term dedicated, the long-term dedicated, or the community food sustainability program. But you can also get the benefits of being in the homeowners class. Those benefits are the 3% protection and the reduction from your property tax rate from 9.35 per thousand to 5.95 per thousand. So that actually represents a 36% reduction in your tax rate. So you should see actually a reduction in your tax class. You won't have to any longer make the choice between being in the homeowners class or being in one of the ag classes. Okay, moving to Lawrence Andrews. Lawrence?
Yeah, sorry, it wouldn't unmute. If I'm understanding correctly, it seems that you in the community food program, it seems that you get 1 5-year shot at participation in the program. And I didn't understand in your documentation that you sent out, you said 1K in earnings in 5 years. Somewhere else it seemed to be saying 1K per year over those 5 years. And if you can't show that.
All right, so while they're discussing this, I am going to turn this off and explain what this is. I am trying to show you guys what big government does when people are trying to form. Okay, so Maui, the indigenous people on Maui pretty much will not work with the USDA, the NRCS, or the county of Maui, or the state of Hawaii. They won't allow them on their farms or anything else. And the point is this: Hawaii is the progressive left's baby. Aloha, MH. It's like where they go to practice their policies of dictatorship. If you did not hear the first 7.5 minutes of this video, it was her explaining how if you're going to be a farmer, you either have to sign on for three-year allotments or 1 10-year allotment, and you're stuck. And if you decide you want to farm the land you live on, before you either had to say you were a homeowner and get this 5% break in your land taxes, or you had to say you were a farmer. And to be a farmer, you had to prove you had so much land available to farm, which I might add, on the islands, that is very discriminatory. See, the USDA NRCS says that even if you only have 100 feet available of land, 10 foot of land, you can still apply for their programs. They cannot discriminate against you because of the amount of land that you have. But obviously, the state of Hawaii, look, farming is for the rich, folks, because owning land in Maui is serious money.
If they are,
Let's keep listening.
I'm going to read the language again. Adhering to generally accepted standards or recognized practices within the agricultural industry that is acceptable in terms of the long-term and short-term dedication and the community food sustainability. So pasturing to keep grass down and to keep pasture in, good condition even without sale, as long as it's adhering to those practices, which would, be things like the number of head of cattle per acre or something like that, still qualifies for those ag programs.
What page are you referring to that shows those standards?
This is on the standards are coming from organizations like the USDA and things like that. This language that I'm referring to is in section 19-2 of the Hawaii County Code, chapter 19.
So, but wait a second. One of the requirements is having to show GE or a Schedule F to enter into the program. So if a farmer doesn't have that because they're just utilizing the animals for their own personal use.
And that's where it's important to document in your farm plan how you are adhering to those standards and not producing that income, but still meeting the standards of agricultural activities.
That's not how it's worded in your literature.
I apologize if that's not the understanding. I don't think I went to those specific details, but pasturing and having cattle for grazing or horses or other livestock for grazing to maintain pastures, and you have the pasture size that you can show in the farm plan that you are adhering to these agricultural standards, does allow you to continue to participate in those programs.
It says you are required to show those taxes. So if you don't have those taxes, you cannot enter the program. That's how the wording is on the charts.
I think that those charts are representative of what the highest level of expectation is. If you read the code, which is the basis of all of this, the code has that flexibility to not have that income requirement.
That's not even what you say on your own FAQ. So.
All right, going now to Rachel.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify several things. So the
you guys hear this?
Agricultural practices that is being used to establish whether or not you can qualify. How do we know what those are? How do we find them? And then who's going to make that judgment?
So that's a really good question. I'm trying to find, let's see, we have Lisa on here from Real Property Tax. She may have had to leave. She couldn't stay the whole time, but I don't see her. There is a document on the Real Property Tax website. It kind of looks like this.
Again, do you guys see? Yeah, Hawaii imports 85 to 90% of food. Do you know why? Are you starting to understand why? Guys, this lady, Heather Kimball of the Hawaii City Council, cannot even express to answer the questions people are asking. Somebody just put on here, the NRCS said that they were not made aware of your changes and have been asked that you guys take them off of your bulletin points. Look, Hawaii is a practice of taking people's rights away and then giving them back a little bit if you jump through hoops. It is your God-given right to grow food, period. Anywhere you live, nobody, not a homeowners organization, not a city council, not the USDA should ever be able to come on your property and say, oh, I'm so sorry, love. MH, look, baby, you don't have enough land, okay? You didn't meet the threshold. People are asking her direct questions like, Who is going to determine, like, you've got this ambiguous law. Who is going to determine how it is walked out? And their own Hawaii City Councilwoman woman can't answer the questions.
Somebody saying that I'm going to do a 300 head of cattle on a quarter of acre. Like, that's not going to be a legitimate farm plan. There's a lot of flexibility in what is going to qualify in the farm plan. Again, the intention and the interest is not shutting down agricultural operations. It's just to make sure we have a robust process. So if you don't have the minimum acreage, you have those two options. You can aggregate lots and have them all be under the same farm operation so that you meet that minimum standard, or you can submit a farm plan that describes how your operation can function on a smaller lot size for that particular agricultural activity. So you do have a couple of options. Hopefully that is clarifying. Eric, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. In 2009, we submitted a farm plan, which is on file with the planning department, for self-sufficiency. Mm-hmm. We're on 20 acres and we've complied with that plan. We grow and eat our own food. We don't sell it, but mm-hmm. we save, $15,000, $20,000 for a family of four by not having to earn or spend money. Mm-hmm. Is in your mind, is that a legitimate agricultural use?
So let me, under the non-dedicated ag program, and this is rule number 34 in the finance director's rules, the term, it states this: the agricultural use does not include nor apply to areas that are used primarily as farm dwelling sites, such as, but not limited to, yard space, setbacks, open landscape associated with residential use, planted with fruit trees or ornamental trees, flowers, or vegetables primarily for home use or recreation. So the thing here, Eric, with respect to the agricultural programs, is you are getting a community benefit, right, from a lower tax rate. The rest of the county, the rest of the taxpayers in the county are subsidizing that benefit. At the same time, in order to receive that benefit, there has to be some community contribution. Now, talking earlier about pasturing, right, it is a community contribution to keep grasses down and fuel down. And so pasturing is considered a community contribution. So Eric, in some way, you're going to have to determine what that community contribution is that you're providing. I would say, I know that you folks do Korean natural farming. You're one of the leaders in that in our community. I think, talking about through your farm plan, how you're providing that educational benefit of expanding that technology in our county is one of the ways that you can talk about the community benefit your farm provides.
Okay, so I also heard you talk the other day and mention that there was an ag park where people were doing self-sufficiency. Are they, did I hear you correctly?
I'm sorry, I'm not really sure what you're referring to. Can you tell me when?
Well, I thought that there was a question about self.
Let's go back over this and let me explain to you what's going on. This is Heather Kimball, the Hawaii City Councilwoman, trying to explain to Hawaii's farmers all the changes Governor Josh Green and their representatives just did to their farm bills. Essentially, folks, if you only have a half acre, you're screwed. Now, here's what upsets me. I'm on 2 acres in Southeast Louisiana. I raise, at any given time, 20 to 110 rabbits, 10 to 45 chickens, okay? I do small livestock rotation and grazing on a 1/4 acre market garden. My farm produces close to 4,000 to 5,000 pounds of food just out of the garden, the market garden, not including the meat. And I do make some money, but by her standards, Sam could not farm in Maui. This is how ridiculous that the democratic process has gotten in Hawaii.
Not my intention at all, Eric, and I want to really make it clear that this is about having a robust program where we're providing a tremendous benefit for folks in the agricultural community, especially with this move to include the homeowners class. And there has to be an element of community contribution. And so the farm plan is the mechanism that you would use to make that distinction with the real property tax department. And, the food sustainability as a whole is a community, is a county priority for all of us, both in the administration and the council. And I can appreciate what you're saying, but I want to make sure that this is all, that you're aware. Let me give an example. Like, I could be somebody that sews all my own clothes, right? And I'm not bringing home the waste from the department store and all of that, but I am not providing a community benefit, so I shouldn't anticipate the benefit of a tax break, right? So there has to be a larger community benefit in order to have your taxes subsidized by the rest of the taxpayers in the county. It is about that fairness.
Okay, and I have another question regarding the language in these bills. Under the current farm plan, which we have on file with the county, it actually says in it that the inspection is to be done, can be done, and that we have to agree to it, but with a reasonable notice. Mm-hmm. The current language is that they can come and do search and seizure whenever they want, without notification. Are you aware of that language and what you're feeling about it? In the rules document? Yeah, in the bills that are out there. Yeah, Bill 57 or whatever it was.
No, I'm not, to my knowledge, we didn't make any
Watch her back out of this
bills to that particular part of the language that I haven't keyed in on in the draft. So if that is something that is stated there, that needs to be corrected. That is not the way.
Please take a look, because that's it just seems to go against the Constitution, the whole nature of free people. The way I read this is that if you want to get this dedication, you give up all rights to search.
Hear this?
Whenever you county and you don't even know who's going to come and search you. You have you don't have any notice.
I will take a look at that, Eric, and you could help me out by actually sending me an email with that specific section, so I don't have to review all of it. But
didn't you write it?
Not the way that it is intended.
Didn't you write it and pass it? Didn't you read it when you passed it?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did, and that's why I'm not certain what part you're referring to, because that's not the intent. I will go back to.
Okay, let me make a point here. Not only did she just mute this man. Hello, Marie. This is Heather Kimball, Hawaii County Council. Not only did she mute his microphone, she laughed when he said, this goes against the Constitution. Like, who is going to come on my property and search and seize at any given time with no prior notice? Guys, this is socialism at the best. You can't get the agricultural tax discount on Hawaii unless you give back to the community an amount that they approve of. So it's all about giving back. So, like, you know what, Sam? You can't have your farm, tax deduction unless you're supporting the community, because now the community is going to have to pay more in taxes because you weren't paying as much in taxes. The hell is this? This is what's coming to America, folks. Keep on fighting these people in, man. So what's wrong with Hawaii right now?
Food forests. So yeah, we recognize that that's a standard of practice for agriculture that should be accepted.
Okay, the diversified agriculture with annual cropping seemed to be saying that was the mix. So that was the only reason why I was even pushing further for the word agroforestry or something like that, because you never know who's infected.
I'm certainly willing to look at strengthening that clarification if that's something. I'll talk with real property tax to make sure that we're on the same page with how we understand that now. But I agree that food forest is an acceptable practice and should be included in what is an allowable practice.
Thank you. And then the longer one, it was just that it seems like you're putting a significant tax increase on the non-dedicated now food community going from 4%, $4,000
Can y'all
per
see
acre
that?
to
Let me know if you can see the questions people are
30%,
asking.
especially for people that are located in high cost per acre properties. And there's a lot of experimentation that happens in that area, and it's an area that people use to try to test things out and get to a place where they can move into the 3-year or the 10-year program. So it seems a little bit, like you're de-incentivizing that creative space. By my math, that example that you gave where you price something at 3,000, 300,000 for a 10-acre parcel, that the tax burden increases 2.5 times in the food community program. So it's not insignificant.
Yeah, the community, I want to be very clear with everyone, the community food sustainability program is not the same level of benefit as the non-dedicated ag program. It was our anticipation that most people in the non-dedicated ag program would actually shift
Guys,
to the short-term.
on full
3-year
screen
program.
only.
That
Okay.
has the same
Let me tell you
benefits,
guys what's going on
and,
one more
the
time.
changes that were
This
recommended
is
to
the lady
non-dedicated
that wrote the new revised agricultural farm bill for all of Hawaii's islands, okay? And she can't even answer these people's questions. They have micromanaged so much that you are required to make a certain amount of money. You have to turn in a farm plan. You have to agree to allow people on your property for search and seizure without prior notice. You don't know who's going to be coming on your property. You have to prove that you growing food, not just for yourself, right? That's not good enough for Hawaii anymore. You have to prove you are worthy for the tax reduction. Folks, this is coming to America because states like Hawaii, California, New York, they try this crap. Yeah, let's put her back on.
Understand it. Earlier you said that a farm that was complying with the agricultural use standards or guidelines, and you held up the document, could could get approval as a legitimate farm with a smaller acreage for pasture than the 10-acre minimum as indicated in these proposed rules, or without the $2,000 per year farm income threshold. But what I don't understand is that's already the requirement for non-dedicated ag. To get any acre assessed as ag in the non-dedicated ag program, you have to comply with the agricultural use guidelines. So I don't understand why, if small farms less than 10 acres can still use pasture and perfectly real farms don't have to show income, what is I just don't understand it. Can you clarify that, please?
So the main addition, Joe, is that in order to, there are these set of standards, right? There's the $2,000 limit. There's the size, minimum size standards that have been applied now to what is the non-dedicated ag, now the short-term dedicated ag.
Right.
If you don't meet those standards, you utilize the farm plan as your tool to show how you are meeting agricultural use standards without hitting those targets. Does that make sense? As in part of the non-dedicated ag program prior to this, there was no requirement for a farm plan. So we are in that's the main thing of all of this that I can say that is different, is that up front we're asking you to describe how your if it's non-conforming to these standards, how your property meets those standards.
Well, I don't understand that either, because 2 or 3 years ago, everybody in the non-dedicated program was required to submit a farm plan.
That wasn't in the code, and that has been added to the code now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's been added to the rules. So that is the minimum, that is going to be required of all folks participating in this program, is to submit a farm plan or
Okay.
those other
So,
forms of documentation that we identified. Going back to
Basically, what they're doing is talking about the new code for farmers.
To ask a question, and she is unable to raise her hand.
Okay.
This is ridiculous.
You can.
They want to shut farms down across America. This is proof. Guys, as you come on,
Yes.
hit the like button. Tell me where you're from. I'll go back and answer questions later, okay? This is Heather Kimball, Hawaii City Council, discussing all
Okay,
the
can
new
you hear me?
changes.
Yes.
So I'm curious, you took an oath of office, and this is what I said when I was speaking to you at the other meeting. Where in the Constitution gives you the right to do what you're doing? Because there's nothing in the Constitution that gives you the right to tell people they can and cannot do, and fine them for not complying with these things that you are putting forth. You are absolutely in violation of your oath of office, and in my opinion, you should absolutely step down for even writing this on a bill. These three things, telling people that they need to change their ohana, the name ohana to accessory, to fining people for not complying with the things that you think that they need to comply with. Where in the Constitution do you have a right to do these to write these bills?
We are given authority to property tax and land use policies through the
Property tax and land use is not part of the Constitution. That is absolutely not part. So I would like to know specifically what part of the United States or Hawaii Constitution gives you the right to make these bills, because the planning department is, just because you have a planning department does not give you doesn't override the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Do you understand you took an oath of office to support and defend the Constitution?
Michelle, your disagreement here is not germane to the conversation we're having about these policies. If you think that we have violated, as the county, our oaths of office, there are avenues for you to take to address that. But we are given taxation authority through the HRS. I'm going to go now to Brittany Anderson. Brittany, go ahead.
I have a question regarding Hawaiian homelands. Does this apply to any Hawaiian homelands?
Yes, we have taxation authority over Hawaiian homelands properties.
So this bill's 58 and 57, that applies to Hawaiian homelands as well?
That's correct. Back to you, Doug.
Hi, this is Shannon again.
Shannon, you gotta change your name so I know what I'm talking to.
Can you help me understand, from an ag perspective, why wouldn't we all want to be dedicated to tenure ag? What is the disadvantage to a property owner who's interested in being in ag, whether it's, at whatever community level? Why wouldn't we all be doing the tenure? Can you help me understand that?
That is a personal choice. You have a greater tax benefit being.
Okay, so the girl you heard speaking, Michelle, is going to be on my other channel, Starkey Farmstead, tomorrow, folks. I'm interviewing her. She's the one that wrote the book about the DEW weapons and the Maui fires, but she is 100% correct. America, listen to me now. Farming is under attack. This lady, Heather Kimball of the Hawaii County Council, has no legal or constitutional right to be mandating how somebody can use their land or how they can use their homes. They have literally, and they're so detailed in these new bills that Governor just passed, Governor Green, they're going to tell you where you can and can't sleep in your house, folks. Welcome to Biden's America. This is a socialist dream. This is what they call freedom, folks. Nobody even knows what they're doing or what they're allowed to do or how they can get tax credits or how much land they need to have. Oh my God, this is absolutely asinine. And this is in America happening real time in Hawaii. Let's put her back on so you guys can really hear how she can't answer
That kind of
questions.
confused me because, we will go for the 10-year ag, but I kind of am still not quite understanding why anyone wouldn't.
Yeah, I think that we're, trying to maintain as much flexibility as possible. And, one of the big examples that I was given about why the non-dedicated ag program was created in the first place is,
Okay, so if you didn't catch that, the lady speaking to her right now would obviously be a friend. Because she's like, oh, wait, why wouldn't somebody want to be in a 10-year contract with the state of Hawaii where you're penalized if you have to drop out because you can't meet all their asinine rules, right? Why wouldn't people do that? And she's like, oh, we're trying to be as flexible as possible. So we're going to offer you three-year contracts in case you don't want to do the 10-year contract. You see how great we are? We're going to give you, folks, here's the problem. She's got no constitutional right to tell you what you can and cannot do on your own stinking land, folks. She doesn't get to be flexible. She's literally setting up rules and regulations that are unconstitutional. Yeah, MH, she's on a flat power trip. Every single person sitting in Hawaii or on power trips, I've never seen anything like it. This is why Lahaina, 11 months post-fire, they've not rebuilt anything. Not rebuilt anything. They're ridiculous. This is how Democrats are. This is how the Democrat Socialist Party of America is. This is them giving you freedoms on your own property, folks.
If Ed is unable to, Ann Worsler would like to ask a question. She can't raise her hand.
No, Ed is unmuted. Go ahead, Ed.
Thanks, Heather, for having this forum. Number one, it creates, I think you're disseminating some good information today that will be very helpful in navigating this in the future. So thank you for doing this. Again, going back to, I think, this issue about pasturing, we currently have some smaller aggregated parcels that have been aggregated together for pasture. We met all the requirements, put in new fencing, created water systems, planting grass, all of the above over the last several years. And if I understand you correctly, and we did have to submit a plan to the tax office.
I want to read something to you guys because I think this is boring. Hold on, let me mute this.
Fencing and water and so on and so forth. So the plan has.
All right. So Michelle, the one I will be interviewing tomorrow, right? She just spoke about how unconstitutional this is. All right, listen to this. This lady, Brittany Anderson, goes, a 10-year is a lien. It's a lien on your property, folks. If you leave the program early, you pay back taxes and a penalty. So in other words, if you are, say, 60 and you move to Hawaii or you're on Maui or you grew up there and now you need to grow your own food because food's so expensive on an island, right? You want to grow your own food, but the only way you're able to grow your own food is if you're part of their stupid farming program. So you're like, golly, like, I have to agree to 10 years. They're going to put a lien against my property for this tax break. And God forbid I come down with cancer or break my hip or physically, or I die, then my kids are going to owe back all those back taxes and a penalty. And you tell me if that's constitutional. Oh, thank you, No Baloney Mahoney. And Michelle wrote the book, right? Michelle Melendez from Blossom Inner Wellness. She's going to be on my Starkey Farmstead tomorrow to discuss this. That's why I'm here. I'm here in support of my sister. And I'm calling her my sister because we women in farming are going to stick together. We're tired of them telling us what we can and cannot do on our own land to feed ourselves.
That was not part of the original legislation. It was added as an amendment during the hearing process. The feeling of the other members of the body was that, given that the short-term and the non-dedicated programs were originally designed as a pathway for folks to get into the dedicated programs, that there should be a limit on the number of times that you renew it. I don't know that I'd like to revisit that. And so I think that's probably already been identified as one of the proposals that in the next year I'll put forward, which is to remove that limitation on renewal. I have not talked with the real property tax folks on that yet, but personally, I think if you want to stay with the lower benefit, I'm not sure why we need to limit that. So that's something I'm going to be looking at.
I agree. If you're continuing to meet the standards and you're able to continue the practice, because again, agriculture, as everybody knows on this call, is not a predictable. I mean, you do your best practices, but it's not always predictable. And in addition to that, it would allow you to manage committing to 10 years at a swath for any family. They may have issues that, or they may want to then convey the property to one of their kids, which will need to apply on their own, or they maybe want to build a house. And the 10-year program doesn't allow as much flexibility, especially if you're going to be penalized. So therefore, you're able to plan on a little more short-term basis versus long-term. And you're receiving less benefits. So there you have it, right?
Yeah, no, I think that you've spelled out the logic, which I will present when this is proposed. I would agree with you fully. Sure. And like I said, it wasn't the original bill. It was amended during the process, and sure. I think it makes sense to just.
And then I actually have one other question. So thanks for bearing with me. With respect to the original bills that were done, you mentioned there was a working group that provided input to the council, I guess. Is that correct?
So there's a long history around this. There was an audit, I want to say 2012. The working group was convened in 2019. And it's a working group. It was a real property tax review working group. And then there was an ag committee subgroup of that. That report was published in 2020, but it comes from 2019. That's the report that we're working off of.
Okay, so for the newbies here, this is Hawaii literally clamping down on their agricultural supporters, the people that grow the food for this island, okay? Yes, ma'am, you can go. Thank you. Keep us, I'm going to speak in a second. I hope so.
Any of the constituency
I just raised my hand.
Affected, these smaller farms that we're talking about, were they part of the working group or input?
Yes, there was input taken from a wide range of farmers into this working group's effort. I will also say that, when we were working on this legislation with real property tax, we provided copies to the Farmers Union, the Haifa, Ulu Co-op, adaptations. We shared it out quite a bit in advance, and some of the modifications that were made were based on that feedback. It was also presented at numerous community meetings throughout.
Micromanaging. This is how the Democrat Party is.
Since we got a mailer from the Real Property Tax Division, which for everybody that was enrolled in the program, that this information should have been disseminated to the people that it actually affected.
That's right.
And that would have been a much more efficient way of getting feedback, because then
they don't want feedback.
People that are actually affected by it could have, and in many cases, didn't know about this.
That's exactly right.
And now are affected because they got the mailer from the Real Property Tax. So clearly,
I'm not voting for Biden.
The information were available.
Is anybody
to the council to reach out to the constituency, but I don't believe that was ever done. And my understanding, at least, of the working group are mainly of larger landowners. There may have been some smaller farms in there, but there are major landowners that seem to be the ones that were giving the input. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. And yeah, in retrospect, I think the idea of sending out a mailer to everybody in these programs, makes a lot of sense. We tried to use some of the agricultural organizations.
Wow. Hopefully they're going to call on me soon to let me speak, folks.
And so, point made. And I don't want to belittle it at all, but we do our best to make the community aware.
No, you don't.
There were articles about this in the paper and whatnot. that this was happening. And we do our best, but I appreciate this suggestion, and we'll take that into consideration. I know that there was some John.
Ann Worsler has been waiting. She was next.
Okay, can you unmute her from the list, and then can you unmute John Kokel?
Ann, I just sent you an option to unmute. You should have gotten a notification.
Let's try to go to John. Let's see if I can find him on the list here.
Okay, I finally was able to unmute. There was a delay there. I was pushing the button, but.
Okay, we'll go to you, and then we'll go to John Kokel. Go ahead.
Thank you. Number one,
go ahead, Stephanie. Stephanie, John will take you next.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we'll take you next, John.
Okay.
We're going to take Stephanie's question first. Yep.
Okay, so number one, thank you very much for doing this, because it's a hard position to be in, I'm sure, to be delivering this kind of agenda. So I guess I was going to approach this kind of from a personal standpoint, and I know this is not all about me, but financially, so my current, I have 5.3 acres, and it's non-dedicated pasture land. I have a cow, goats, things like that. So I'm going to go, according to the tax office, from $485.52 a year to paying $2,100 a year. Now, I'm not a spring chicken, so my income is not going to be able really to sustain 5 times increase. So I'm serious, and I'm just about in tears, because I'm seriously probably going to have to sell my home, because I can't, Social Security is not going to give me a 5-time increase. So it's very sad to me, because I've been here since 2004. I'm sorry. So I'm a little beklept or put back or something. And it seems to me that we only have until September 2025 to make some changes. So I'm trying to get information to see if there's any way possible that I could swing not losing my home, which I absolutely love. I had also had to fill out for the pasture land. So I had to get the fencing and water trough, and I submitted the plan, and actually someone,
y'all hear this?
Came to my property. So all of that was
Y'all hear this?
So now
This lady's going to lose everything.
My understanding is that I'm going to
everything
have
to
to
a 5-time property increase tax.
Some kind of commercial use. And I guess
Stephanie, I'm gonna cut you off right there, because if you have an acceptable farm plan under the NDA program, that I want to make sure that it's really clear. There's that $2,000 threshold, but if you can demonstrate through your farm plan that you are adhering to accepted practices in agriculture, which it sounds like your previous farm plan indicated, you should be able to continue that pasturing. Pasturing is a recognized agricultural practice.
Yay! Oh my gosh, thank you. So, how do I nail that down and make sure that
what a shame that this lady is this excited.
So
yeah. So I would, start that dialogue
to have the right to continue farming on her beautiful land.
Anything that might need to be adjusted, or any concerns that they might have.
That's how the Democrat Party get it. That's why you're back on the plantation when you vote Democrat. They take all your freedoms.
If you're less than that, you're going to have to be able to demonstrate how your processes are going to, contribute that same pasturing benefit on a.
They are, Kevin. You are correct. It's all political garbage, folks. It's all about the wording. But you see, this is how the Democrat Party works. Take all your rights away, and then I'm going to piece and parcel them back to you, so that you're excited. You're thankful. I'm your savior. I'm your God. I'm the Democrat Party. They believe that government is God. See, I don't always vote Republican. I'm gonna tell you the truth, I do not. I'm a conservative. Believe in a constitution
donating that, but then I guess you have to
that
get
gives me
receipts.
my inalienable
So
rights,
I'm really,
not the
it's
government.
very
My
vague to me, which
constitution
I'm not
gives
comfortable with
me
vague when
my
I'm looking
rights.
at disrupting my
Yeah,
whole
no,
living.
I can appreciate that, and I understand the anxiety that this causes. And you know, the intention is, you know, to just ensure that people are engaged in
I'm fixing to speak, so keep listening.
agricultural practices, and so you'll just have to demonstrate that through your farm plan. And it sounds like if your place has been inspected and you already had an accepted farm plan, you should be able to meet the qualifications. I think that there has been some lack of clarity around this monetary threshold, but it's very clear in the language of the law that it's an or thing. And you know, there's a couple of other areas, for example, that we're reviewing, and you know, the rulemaking process is a place for us to look for those inconsistencies. One of them is requiring a lease agreement, and there's actually nowhere in the code that requires like a lease agreement if you're having somebody run cattle or sheep on your property. So we're looking at other ways of documenting some sort of contract or an agreement between a landowner and somebody that's bringing in cattle. So that
See, more
you know,
control.
there are places, people that
More
can't afford a lease,
control.
right, because they have a mortgage or something like that.
Right. But I was
More
not
control.
ever dedicated to farm. I was always the non-dedicated pasture. So is that what you're referring to as the farm plan?
Exactly,
Heather?
Angela,
You
exactly.
you will have to do a farm plan to qualify for the short-term dedicated ag program, and pasturing is
Why?
considered a legitimate form of agriculture.
There's an option why. John just wrote that.
You're not on mute.
I think my time's
Hit the
up.
like button, folks.
Okay, let's go to the John Kokel, please. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Apologies if I'm not.
Yeah, you got it right. Thank you. Sorry about the outburst. I forgot I was on mute. Heather, I have a couple questions about timelines. And by the way, thank you. Like the other said, thank you for doing this. This is a tough conversation. And
Thank you for doing this. That's another problem with the Hawaiians and people that live on Hawaii that I've seen. You're thankful, so thankful to the government that they're big-headed. They're like your mom and dad. Like, thanks, Dad. Thanks for taking me to work today. I appreciate it. Thanks, Mom. Thanks for washing my clothes. That's a civil servant. No, I have manners. I'm from the South. Like, we're so nice to everybody. This is ridiculous. Can the county rules for the annual gross income be changed to 1,000 and the 10,000 investment minimum be spread over multiple years versus all in 1 year? Do you see what I'm saying? They're making you invest $10,000 into a minimum of 10 acres. You know how expensive 10 acres on Maui would be? And then prove that you also made $1,000 to continue being in the agricultural world and farming, because without that farming allowance, folks, your property taxes go up 5 times. 5 times. It's 5-time increase. Small farmers were not consulted. It was not in your email. The challenge is, as a landowner ages in place and becomes more mobility challenged or injured, or a spouse dies, and the remaining landowner is physically weaker or now on reduced income or Social Security, that person now faces the choice of having to move due to the resulting inability to pay mortgage and increased taxes. Can you please add a grandfathering clause into this? It's ridiculous.
Can you just review real quickly for us the application?
Ridiculous that they're doing this to people. And
Yeah,
they're
so
just
the
taking it.
application
Just
deadline
taking
is
it.
September of 2025, and then real property tax will have a year to review those applications, and so until 2026, and then the program actually doesn't take effect until 2028.
Okay. And when I read the program, and I read it twice, it sounds like for startup operations, there is some consideration as long as you're demonstrating the intent and you meet the guidelines.
That's correct. Yeah, so I had a conversation with somebody that's planting an orchard, for example.
I'm going to
They
speak
know
in a
that they're
minute.
not
I've been
gonna have
waiting
produce
patiently.
to sell for 4 or 5 years. That is understood and acceptable. Same with like, slow rotation forestry, and short rotation.
What they're
forestry,
trying to
and-
do
and
is stop
that
people
is
from making an
included in
income off their
agricultural
property.
practices. We know that you don't make any money off of that until 20 years from now. So
Right.
that is understood and anticipated. And that's why the language about the adhering to accepted standards of practice in agriculture is important, because it
Wow.
provides that flexibility.
Wow.
And to the previous questioner, Stephanie, there is a lot of ambiguity, and I don't like that any more than
Thank
you
us-
do. But
thank
then
you, man.
that's
Tell him I said
also the
thank
flip
you,
side of that
Angela.
is
That's
its
amazing.
flexibility, right? For these, there's a lot of farms that will just obviously fit right into these things. There's a lot of them that won't, and the county does want to have flexibility to.
Yeah, we want to give
enroll
you a
as
little
many people as we
flexibility.
can.
My last question, thank you. My last question, and maybe I missed it, but did you guys define income in the definitions?
I keep
And
asking
here's
to
why I
speak.
ask. There's a big difference between gross revenue and net income.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
listen
so
to
the
this.
terminology is a minimum of generate income, monetary gain, or economic benefit in the form of money or money's worth. So it's, again, pretty broad and intentionally flexible.
Is that gross revenue, Heather?
It doesn't, it is gross, but it doesn't say that specifically. That's where that's in the rules.
Well, that might reduce some of the angst that you're hearing. That would define better. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Samantha, who's been waiting patiently. Hopefully you'll get my notice to unmute.
Yes, ma'am, I
And-
did.
Samantha,
Hi.
sorry, after someone named Tag had also asked. Thank you.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
I just have a general question. Let me see if I understand this. Farming is mainly about land, taking care of the land, and food security, correct? So making sure that in an event like COVID, people do not go without adequate food, being that the islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, we saw supply chains break down. Food security became a serious problem. So why is there such a push for an increase in regulations when there should be a reduction in regulations so that you're encouraging more young farmers, middle-aged farmers, indigenous farmers to get back into growing their own food? Like, I just feel like it's an uphill battle, and maybe I'm not understanding, but that is exactly how I'm taking it.
Yeah, thank you for that question and comment, Samantha. What I will say is this. We, in response to COVID, recognize the really detrimental impact of the market inflation on farmers and the costs of their homes. And so our solution to that was to bring them into that homeowners tax class, which has, again, the lower tax rate and the cap on assessment value. On the flip side of that, this program is costly to the county, right? It's $40 million. So we want to ensure that the program is robust and we're giving these benefits to folks that can document what they're doing. To me, that is a fair trade-off, right? That you've got to be able to show that you're providing this community contribution in order to get these tax breaks.
Okay, so let me just.
When it comes to the food security, we actually created that additional program, the Community Food Sustainability Program, to actually provide more incentives to people that weren't eligible for the non-dedicated ag program. And so that's, that is a new program that has that absolute intent to bring new people into the food production area and incentivize that by providing a tax break.
Right.
Without
Okay.
having to meet the criteria of the other programs.
Right. I understand what you're saying, but you're literally saying it's going to cost the county $40 million. But in reality, the county's not spending any money. So you're not spending money. You're just getting a reduction in money, which, like, fiscal spending isn't necessarily our fault. What about grants? Like, why are grants not being offered? Why are not 0% interest loans being offered? Why Why is none of that on the table? Why does it just feel like do this, do this, do this, meet these standards, and we will give you a reduction when it should be the opposite? It should be an encouragement to get new farmers. You keep saying robust, but can you define what y'all's definition of robust is? Because in my mind, the more farmers, the less food security. So that's a robust system.
So what I mean by robust, Stephanie, is that we're all aware of folks that go ahead and they fence off 40 acres, they stick a cow on it, they say, this is agriculture, I should get the tax break, and then they hold on to that property for 20 years. I literally have one of those right next to my house. And so that is the sort of thing where we don't want to provide that tax benefit to that particular individual because they're not contributing anything to our community. When I say robust, I'm talking about making sure that we at the county have the documentation we need to say this is somebody that should get the tax break. And it shouldn't be just looked at as government spending, Stephanie. When we need revenue as the county to be able to support trash, the transfer stations, wastewater, roads, all of that stuff. So when folks are given a tax break, they are actually being subsidized by the rest of the taxpayers in the county. And then we're just trying to make sure that people that have the advantage of this tax benefit are doing so in a legitimate way. And we've had that, we've had a problem with that because we haven't required this upfront documentation in the past. So
okay, so let me, I just wanted to make sure. All I'm saying is that I've never been one to punish the many for the few. And my thing is this, I mean, there's a lot of ways to make up a difference of 40 million, like possibly reducing income for city council members. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. I did want to make one comment though, because you did highlight another program that we are looking at, which is
she kept calling me Stephanie. Heard that?
To farmers as a way to help support our smaller farms. We know that $5,000 grant to a farm to buy a new piece of equipment or install fruit trees or do something like that is really beneficial. They can amplify that amount of money. So a micro grant program is something that we have been talking about at the council. Bev, I'm going to check in with you. Did we have anybody else waiting to ask a question that hasn't before?
Yes, the person named Tag, I'm going to ask them to unmute.
Would you look at that? I'm unmuted.
I'm sorry, Stephanie, or Samantha, that I called you Stephanie. That was the previous question. I apologize.
Finally,
go ahead, Tag.
Apologized. So I'm going to hop off of this, guys. I've had enough. I made my point. I like to pop on and remind them that, even though I am technically,
you've got a pretty sensible.
I've even spoken to Mayor Bisson. Yeah. So when I go to Maui and Hawaii, I like to make my presence known because I'm there as exactly Happy Feet. My name is Samantha. Truth warriors. Yeah, somebody just said, I don't want fake farmers to get money away from the real farmers, but they're brainwashed because see, you're gonna punish many to stop a few, right? Like that's what you're going to do. But if it's one cow on 20 acres and she just said, if you're running cattle on land to keep the brush down and the grass down so there's no more fires, quote unquote, then that's agriculture. But so she contradicted herself, right? She contradicted herself. There's no logic, LaDahlia. That's right. There's no logic. When you are polite, because I was polite, but I got my point home. There's a lot of ways to make up $40 million. How about give the city council members an income cut? Like you don't need to be making as much money as you do. And I made sure to clarify to her, you're not spending 40 million. You're just not going to receive the 40 million. Truth Warrior, you're probably right. Guys, we're going back to Maui August 1st through the 12th to be there for memorials, to speak to the king, and to fight for the Hawaiian people. If you would like to donate to that trip, when I put this up on the channel, when I upload this video all the way, I will show the different ways that you can donate. Look, folks, we're going to help fight for the indigenous farmers of Hawaii because some are my friends. I'll be working on forums when I'm back on the island because that's what I do. I'm an active tourist that goes there to prove and show the world that if they do it to them, you better get ready, friend, because they're coming for you. God bless you guys. Love y'all. Good night.